Okay, we are live. Let's just have a look. So this will serve as a bit of a test as well here too. So just bear with me for 1 minute here while I go to my channel. Here we go. Turn down the volume. Let's see. Look at this test. Gonna look at myself. How's that? Oh, there you go. 64-page special. There you are. I see it. Hey, that looks better, right? Okay. Boy, oh boy. Who knew? Just wanting to be a shut-in and do a couple of videos about some obscure ad zine from the 70s that three people are going to want to watch would be such a fucking hassle. Thanks for coming back. Nice to see you again. So, where were we? So, the Mirk-Wood Times. We're going to look at the first three issues. I'm going to delete that other video, so forgive me while I retread some territory. First issue, February 1973. Russ Works was talking in the new Nostalgia Journal video that I did recently. Apologies for the quality on that video. He was mentioning, and I think it's worth repeating, just about the ages of these kids basically, or these young men who are dealing in this business, and what a big business it had potential to become at that time, coming off of the boom of kind of, it seems to me, what little I know about these kind of fanzines and stuff like that, seems to me that a boom for kind of comics and sci-fi ones would have been kind of 60s and then into the 70s as well, maybe not as much in the 70s, but there's a lot of reference to stuff that was happening in the 60s. These kids are kind of 18, 20, 22, 24 years old. They're young, and they're all of a sudden, like this Alan Light character, pardon me, seem to be making a hell of a lot of money right off the bat. The number again that was quoted by Gary was about $1,000 a week based on whatever research he had done. So I can see that this is serious business. I can also understand a little bit where you're going to want to make sure that you secure your side of that business. I guess a lot of that stuff always just comes down to a question of what kind of business person you want to be, how you want to present yourself and your company, and how you want to also kind of support kind of that fandom and fan community, all the fanboys out there. Not that we know anything about that. So we have in our greedy little mitts the Mirk-Wood Times, issue number 1. We have a front cover that was done by Neil Adams as a poster design for the play that was just getting underway. This issue's covers by Neil Adams. It also serves as the promotional poster for Warp, a new sci-fi comics serial. The play opens on February the 15th. And again, the conversation in later issues is that not only was this cover used for issue number 1 here, it was used in the buyer's guide, and it was also used on another fanzine. The difference being, from what I understand, is that the buyer's guide may have been trying to pass it off as something that was created just for them, for their magazine, where they're very clear about what this cover is and where it comes from and what it was used for. So they had a few, you will see throughout this issue that there's a few issues with some of the quality going forward just for this single issue. They're still kind of working things out with the printer that they have a relationship with. The printer that they have this relationship with at this stage for issue number 1 is they want things very specific measurements. They're not willing to kind of photograph and shrink down images. They want everything ready to go. They want to put in as little work as possible by the sounds of it, which is understandable. I imagine they're probably getting some sort of deal, maybe not. But either way, the first one has this wraparound cover that I'm just going to take off while we look through the rest of it for now. We start off with an editor's note, and basically just saying, hey, thanks very much for taking part in this first issue. They're sending out a lot of these free. Please help support us keep this going by taking out some ad space, doing a personals ad or something in the back. And let's keep this magazine going. We need your help. Over 800 copies of this issue have been sent out to dealers. If you're a dealer and are interested in this project, send us an ad for the second issue. As you know, the advertising pays for our labors to send free newspapers to fandom. Any size ad would be a great help and greatly appreciated. And then we get to kind of the ad costs here. On the previous page, actually, I think it was the ad cost. So on the second page, then we get into kind of the subscription rates. And I discussed earlier in the live stream that it was sent out to free to people. If you wanted it for free, they would absolutely send you this. If you wanted to subscribe to kind of help support them financially, maybe get a copy of it a little earlier than everybody else, you were more than welcome to. There was prices on the front of each issue. Just to talk, just in case you wanted to sell it out of your store. And there's a little closer look. Hopefully that's coming up. Publisher, editor, Steve J. Allen, co-editor, Mike Berg, and all the way down. So based out of DC, Desolation Row Comics Company. So maybe I was wrong about what I had said before. I thought maybe this Middle Earth was what they were, but maybe it's this Desolation Row. So then we get into the meat of it here, and this is where things start to pick up for me, especially when I'm seeing ads like this and seeing pages like that popping out, because again, not really stapled here, just everything folded onto each other. Join the experience, Graphic Illusion #1 with some incredible artwork. Dr. Monkeybot, I don't know if you're still watching these videos these days, but that seems to me to be right up your alley, just like it is mine. The other good thing about especially revisiting this stuff now is the ability to just quickly look online to see what actually made it to print, what's still out there. This one sounds great. Al Williamson, Jeff Jones in the first issue. #2, Jack Kirby, Steve Fabian Folio. Also in issue 1, which is also in the next page as well. It looks like some a Mr. A strip by Ditko, 5 pages. And then we go right to the next page here for the collector. And down at the bottom, we see some more Ditko, Mr. A work as well. I mean, and that's, for me, this is the appeal of all of this stuff. Just this time capsule of what was going on. Partially just realizing also fandom has always been a part of it, and just kind of getting a bit more of a sense of what it was like then with the fans and these things that were created for them. It's not like things aren't created and exist for us now, just in a different format. But there's something to be said about reproducing something like this. And Damien, if you are watching this at a later date, where's your fanzine? I thought you had talked about doing something. Let's see that go. I'd love to see that happen. This Frazetta appears in each of the 3 issues so far, this portfolio of 1,500 copies. And then here we get into another kind of sticking point that Alan Light brings up in his dissing of Mirk-Wood. This is a review section which appears in each of the issues. Everything from the highest rating being excellent to the worst rating of a 0 being waste material, comma, jive. So they didn't speak too highly about this flashback #1, which apparently was something that was put out by the Buyer's Guide, kind of a subsidiary of them, Dynapubs. There's one good thing about this publication, that is it's readable. The rest of it is an insult to Wallywood and EC. The method of reproduction is so bad and disrespectful to the masterly artwork of Wood that it would be better to pay $50 for the original comic books the stories were taken from. So that didn't sit with him too well either. They claim that it wasn't something that they were doing just to kind of attack them, the point of this reviews column is to be honest, and they would never censor one of their contributors. So what else do they talk about in this one? Oh, Squatront number 3, Swamp Thing number 3, Promethean Enterprises number 4, and then Jungle Jim. So just a brief one-pager. And then here we get into kind of some of the problems with this first issue as far as some layouts, also maybe with what people were submitting for the zine itself. They do say, you know, you can handwrite stuff, you can type stuff out, but I don't think even the person who just hand wrote this was thinking this is how it would be reproduced, cut off at the tops and the bottoms. It's a bit of a mess to begin with, but made even worse by kind of the poor layout in this first issue. But like I said, this one shouldn't stand as anything to compare the rest of it with, because the rest of the issues are phenomenal. And again, another handwritten submission with a brief list of comics for sale. Things like Doc Savage, numbers 1 and 2, $2 each. What else do we got? Call 1 and 2, mint, $1.50 each. Amazing Fantasy 15 VG, $20. Weird Science Fantasy Annual number 1 for $85, etc., etc. Daredevil number 1 and X-Men number 1, $7 for a fine copy. House repairs may have pushed back Sleepy Zine. Oh yeah, okay. I didn't actually realize that they're having some house repairs. The Comic Reader Publications present full page ad, and then Call the Conqueror portfolio. John Severin, who is interviewed very briefly in issue number 2, and we'll come to that in a second when we reach that one. And then the center spread, again, who I thought they were associated with was this Middle Earth paraphernalia. Really, really great. I think this same ad appears in all 3 of the issues as well too. This is the only time though that it's on its own kind of quality white paper stock. But I love the layout of this ad, just kind of hawking some of their wares there. Vampirella, Eerie Magazine, more Frazetta, Dracula, this Dracula book up here, and then some EC and stuff down. Another thing that appeals to me about this particular ad zine is their kind of link with underground comics. It's one of the things that they cite as an untapped source of people who might be interested in ad zines. I guess there wasn't a lot out there for underground comics. I find that a little hard to believe, because even in my kind of really preliminary searches for zines and stuff, there is a few, including one that's Dr. Wortham's that turned into a comic as well. I saw a Dr. Wortham's Comics and Stories number 1 that was more of a zine, a fanzine of sorts, I guess. Maybe not a fanzine, but a zine-ish. So maybe they still felt, because their comic shop apparently also really sold a lot of underground comics. So a lot of their customers, they claim that they had about 1,000 people just from those customers coming into the store that they signed up for this Mirk-Wood Times. And then here we have the Monster Times, something that I remember seeing on Costin Bromstar's channel at least once, probably a few times, focusing on these magazines, which always looked phenomenal to me. And those are fairly easy to find on eBay and other sources. They look really, really great. So an ad for that and offering subscriptions. More comics at the lowest prices. Another issue with this first one is some printing errors here. Unfortunate. Herb Dom. I buy old comics, and then this jumped out at me as well too, because when I was looking at this layout, there's a more modern kind of cartoonist slash artist who takes a lot of old comics and kind of reworks them. I think he calls himself Sampler Man, and this was is really reminiscent of the kind of things that Sampler Man would do, just taking almost collaging old comics. Although his stuff is a lot more abstract than this. At first, I thought this was for a zine, but this Krusty K character appears in the first few issues. Um, Viper Vision #2 is what it says, the Saucer Club News. And when I did a little bit of searching online for anything with those titles, nothing came up. Even typing in his name before it, I couldn't find anything myself. So leads me to believe that this was just a piece of art that was in there, his contribution. And we'll see another one in issue #2 as well. And again, just kind of finishing it off with another ad looking to sell books and comics and catalogs. This one will also send you a full color 35mm slide or color photo of any item listed here, available for just $1.50 each. You can choose 10 photos slash slides for $10 postpaid, to get a better look at the quality of the comic that you're going to purchase. And then we get into the classifieds and, of course, our favorite comic bags. 2 pages of classifieds here and there. And that pretty much wraps up issue #1 of Mirk-Wood Times. Back cover, the Mirk-Wood Times needs help. Tell everyone you know to send us their name, address, and zip code for a free subscription. So there we go. That's issue #1. So not a horrible first issue by any stretch. Really gives you a good sense of things. But by issue 2, things have just kind of dramatically improved with layout, with the way everything is put together. So here, and also now a 50-cent price tag on the front, whereas the first one was 25 cents. Actually, I may as well just keep these damn things on instead of keep reaching up there. So we start out with Steve giving us an editorial from just kind of thanks very much for supporting issue #1. We're still here. Please keep going. Just reminding people about the end dates for submissions for ads. And again, just putting out a call for, we really need your ads. That's the only way we're going to keep going. So John Severn interview. At this time, we would like to announce the coming of 2 more forthcoming interviews. First one with the Master of Underground, Richard Gore Corbin. That happens in numbers 4 and 5. And secondly, for the first time in America, a conversation with Frank Frazetta, which I don't think ever comes to see the light. We'll see if it's in issue 6. I don't believe so, though. Also, future articles such as Conan, and with words by Roy Thomas, and a checklist of all Barry's work while working on this great mag. All this and more in future issues of Mirk-Wood Times. I think a lot of this gets preempted because they do focus a bit on issue 3 and 4 with this with the issues between them and the Buyer's Guide. So that kind of puts things on the back burner, which also must have sort of chapped people's ass who were getting it. I mean, instead of dealing with some mudslinging, you're not getting the interviews and you're not getting these other things that have been promised. It's amazing to me the stuff that pops up, though. Again, like these images here, the collector, and especially at the bottom, No Man Phase 2, just that little piece, that little slice that you get of what that is. Man, I want this. Really, really great. just a style of the time. And then here again, we get the Call of the Conqueror portfolio. 6 drawings never before published for 5 whole bucks. Each print a large 15 by 11 size, highest quality possible. So what do we got? Buddy Saunders, Grand Prairie, Texas. List of comics that he has for sale and prices. And then this same ad, I think that we saw in issue number 1 as well. Street Enterprises, Wisconsin. Oh yeah, the Menominee Falls Gazette. There we go. Another one that jumped out at me so much that, man, Russ, if you're watching this one, please tell me you know something about Phantasmagoria, because when I did a search for some photos, let's hope that focuses there on something. See if we get really close. Is it gonna? Let's see, focus on my hand. Anyway, Phantasmagoria. Some of the artwork from the covers is just mind-blowing. Again, this is a shout out. This is a lighthouse call to Dr. Monkeybot. Keep your eyes out for Phantasmagoria because it looks fucking incredible. Let's see. Let's have a look here. Phantasmagoria 3 will be published in May, June of 73. It's a feature attraction, an exquisite fable from the age of fish set in a world that is fantastic but also crazy enough to resemble our own world. Become a classic, blah, blah, blah. There's not a name that I see with any of it. Oh no, hey, look at you, Kenneth Smith. There you go. Small print way down here. 1973, Kenneth Smith. Right down in that little spot down there, which will never focus. But yes, good eye there, 64-page special. It's fucking beautiful. That's an amazing layout of a page for my money. Absolutely incredible. So those have jumped high onto the list. A few of them have popped up when I did a bit of a search. Our friend William Ditto, I think is what that says, with his handwritten list. And then another ad for the Monster Times. Our favorite Frazetta ad, and another kind of just illustration that I really, really liked. Quite a while ago, I did kind of a spaceman in just floating out, a skull inside a spacesuit, and the spacesuit kind of what resembled this. Seeing this picture makes me want to dig out that image and maybe rework it again to have another shot at it. Clyde Caldwell. Space and Time number 17 is what that ad is for. And then someone looking for selling and also looking for old comics. Looks like all Looney Tunes. Yeah, Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig. And then right at the end, some Buck Rogers and Captain Marvel. Ten new full-color posters by Frazetta. 3 different series. Only series 1 has some images attached. And again, our Middle Earth 2-page spread. Beautiful. Looks even better this time than it did the first time. Cleaned up a little bit. And then the brief interview with John Severin, and I mean it's the same thing you're going to hear me say about the Richard Corbin rather interview when we get to that one. Um, not horrible, but a very short interview first of all, and really kind of surface level interview. Um, just talking about, a couple of things. First professional break into the comics field. Which artists have inspired him the most? Which EC stories did you enjoy the most? And a lot of these things talking about like which stories did you like doing the most? And his answer to most of them is I've done so many, I'm hard pressed to remember every single one, and kind of gives a very general answer. So it's a little bit surface, but still neat to see that they're reaching out to some artists. And at the time of this writing, we deeply regret having to announce that John Severin will no longer be inking the comic book Call the Conqueror. And the main reason is cited, even he says it in the article, is that it takes him 2 times as long to ink an issue of that as it does anything else. Specifically, the ones that he does with his sister Marie Severin. He says, we've been working on stuff together for so long, and both were taught by our father that it's a breeze to ink anything that she pencils. But Cull is just taking him a couple of times. I see. Think the only Kenneth Smith work you definitely have is in Dalgota. He did the color. Okay, cool. Severin's interviews are almost always glib. Fair enough. But I think part of it with this one is the questions that he's being asked. I do like. We'll get to it in a second. He does trash underground comics, and I've made note of that because I think it would be great to put together a page of kind of mainstream comics artists slamming the dirt, filth, and crap that comes out of the underground. So there's a Graphic Illusion ad again. And then some letters. I can't remember if there was anything that stood out for me in this one. I don't think so. I mean, there's some really constructive criticism for sure. This Jeff L. Patton is one where he talks about the things he did like, but he's not shy about talking about the things that he thinks didn't work, and also requests that if you do print my letter, please print the whole thing. Don't print just a part of it. So that's kind of good, because he does it in a constructive way as opposed to just shitting all over him. Again, same ads there. Comic bags, and then we get into the reviews. Mr. Miracle, which they're not crazy about. He just gives it a fair. And I keep saying he. I should probably say the person's name. And no name attached on this page. I don't remember. I don't believe there was a contents page. Oh, here we go. Reviews. A continuation of a most informative feature. No, it doesn't have. That's fucking hilarious, though. It doesn't have a name attached to it there either. So there's the list of reviews. Conan the Barbarian, fantastic exploits. Anomaly number 4, so more underground stuff. Cinemagic number 1. And then here we go. So then it's also, we continue with the Severin. What is your opinion on the underground comics movement? Interesting but unnecessary. Amusing but in bad taste. Wally Wood and Will Eisner are entering the underground field. Do you think this will have an effect on its future? That depends on what they do once they're in the field. I'd rather wait and see what they do. Um, from the undergrounds you've read, which artists are your favorites? Richard Corbin is the only underground artist who can consistently draw well, write coherent stories, and refrains from at least most of the immature vulgarities that most underground artists find so absolutely necessary to include in their work in lieu of talent or some other saving quality. And then follows up with, how do you feel about doing work for the underground? Clearly, he's ecstatic to do so. I'm not sure, possibly in the future, if they go straight, pay more, and I have any time. But I suppose if they did all that, they would no longer be called underground. There you go. So the last bit of the Severin. Bill Devine, again, new comics. And then again, we get Krusty K with a half-page sudden destruction piece there. What does that say? Justice, courage, action. And then we start on some classifieds. Chronicle and Phase. Yeah, this Phase, some really great stuff here. Pilote. There we go. More Monster Times and Wits End. And there we go. And then the call for everybody to send in names, addresses, and zip codes for a free subscription. Really trying to get people out for that. Where did I put that? There. And then finally for this video, we'll take a look at issue number 3, where things get juicy, I guess, if that's how you want to look at it. A Bill Black cover, so this is May, I believe it's 1973, right? Yeah, Bill Black 73. The Mirk-Wood Times 3. And again, really well put together, this one. So we get the Ed's department, where he starts to kind of say, hey, listen, there's some things that we need to address, and we're going to get into it. Don't you worry. They start a quiz contest feature in this issue. So you have to name the character and name the artist. And if you win, you're going to get a mint copy of Conan #1. And then our Phantasmagoria ad again, same full page ad. So this is where it all kicks off here. A letter from one of their advertisers talking about, thanks very much. We have seen a bit of a spike based on issue #1. We haven't seen anything from issue #2 yet, but at the time of this writing, he's saying that I don't think it's yet been published or it's been sent out to anybody. And then he encloses a letter that his partner, this is from Stephen Goldstein. What does he say here? We will also put an ad in the buyer's guide, so we will be able to tell you what the results were between the 2 ads. You must have Alan Light scared, because enclosed is a letter Frank got from him, so his partner Frank. And then he encloses just kind of a letter, so then they start to just discuss the letter, and they break it down paragraph by paragraph. And I won't go into the details about it, but it's interesting enough, because you can kind of get a sense of the bullshit that may be coming from one side specifically. And I can just imagine, you're just trying to kind of get your zine off the ground. And he extends to Alan Light, hey, if you guys want to post an ad for the buyer's guide with us, we're more than welcome to have you. We'll take your money and we'll gladly post an ad for you. We're not even trying to become your kind of competitor. And then we start to see, then we get an actual copy of this letter that was enclosed for them to read. mean, it is pretty shitty. There's quite a bit of shit talk going on there. Maybe not to the degree that you see in some of the YouTube comics comments sections, but it's not that great, and just kind of outright lying about some of the things, claiming that they say they have 4,000 where it was clear as day 3,000 people that they're sending this out to. And then we get into some reviews again, things like Slow Death, Space Fantasies, Call the Conqueror Portfolio, Chronicle 2, Alternatives 5, Zine, Space Fantasies, Fanzine Comics, and then an open letter. Hey, do you want us to review your stuff? Please send it in. We'd love to have it. Our Middle Earth Comics 2-page spread. Same one as the previous issue. And now this one kind of extending with some a couple more pages filled with actual comics. One page entirely made up of, oh, this one over here, entirely made up of underground comics. Also in the beginning kind of editorial, he talks about we still need 20 ads for the next one. If we don't get these advertisers, I'm afraid we're not going to make it to issue number 4. So there is a bit of a plea for people to send in their ads toot sweet so they can keep this going. Fandom notes, more letters, and more often it's people that are praising it, just saying that they're really glad to see another ad zine on the market and how well they think it's going to do, and they're all really looking forward to seeing what kind of interest they get from placing ads with them. Phantom Lady, Haunted Horseman, Journey to Nightmare's End. And the Frazetta ad again. There are many ways to tell people what you have for sale. Advertise in the Mirk-Wood Times. This is the best way. Little comic strip. Don't know if this is something that happens for the rest of the issues, but little taste of something different. Another call ad, and then the Frazetta, and then Jeff Jones, who appears in issue number 6 of Mirk-Wood Times. And there we have it, people. There's a look at the first 3 issues of Mirk-Wood. We'll do this again when we go to the last 3 issues, and we'll spend not too much time on the Corbin, because again, unfortunately, like the Severin interview, it's pretty surface and doesn't really reveal too much. But we'll focus on it as we tie that back in with our Richard Corbin reading. Thanks very much. 64-page special. Thanks for sticking with me as I come and go and come and go. And the rest of you who are watching in the future, thanks very much for tuning in. And we'll talk to you soon.